Let's move back a few years to the run-up to the crisis.
Yeah.
On Meet the Press, you and Bob Schaefer discussed a bill in 2005 that was to reform.
Was that a discussion, or was that a one-way unloading?
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and
Sure.
you
Yeah.
said you supported it. He said that you supported 3 amendments, including one that was proposed by former Iowa Representative Republican Jim Leach, who has subsequently supported Barack Obama and in fact spoke at the convention here in his favor. But his amendment specifically was one that would have increased the capital requirements, minimum capital requirements for them, and you voted against that.
Yeah.
Did you not? And why did you vote against
I
that?
did.
And why did you vote for against the other two?
Well, there were 3. Yeah, there were 3 amendments. If Bob had given me a chance to answer, as the clock ran, I might have turned to those specifics, but I took the little bit of time I had to talk to some of the other questions that Tom Brokaw asked. It was my considered opinion that all 3 of those amendments weakened the bill, and if you look at the margins by which those amendments failed, they were enormous. They were 300 plus votes against. That's not to say that your point isn't at the heart of what we face. The idea, and again, we're all business people at some level, and keep looking at John in this regard, but the idea that you can have leverage of 40 to 1 and 50 to 1 and 60 to 1 is just not sustainable, and we've got to return to ratios, capital to debt obligations that are much more conservative. We have insurance programs on insurance programs on insurance programs with no collateral backing them up. I mean, that's a simplistic way to describe what's happened. But back to your question. At that time, that was my opinion that all 3 of those amendments actually didn't contribute to what the bill was trying to do, and I voted no.
But you thought it was a good bill overall?
I thought it was a good bill overall, and of course
it increased the ability of those 2 entities to finance mortgages up to, what, $540,000. And in fact, it increased its ability to penetrate the residential mortgage market in the United States, and therefore ultimately, arguably, increased its leverage and the trouble that ensued. Do you not agree with that, or do you think it was in retrospect, was it wise to increase that lending figure to 500?
I think in retrospect, a lot of things all of us would do differently. I do think what you saw there was the markets that were running hot, and where there was a sense that there was unlimited opportunity. Phoenix and Miami, San Diego. Of course, with home values increasing, then you wanted to increase those loan limits, where an affordable house was more in those categories than it would be, say, in a community that had lower real estate values, perhaps a Detroit, or I'm trying to think of another city where the real estate market wasn't booming to the extent it was booming in some of those areas. So I think that was the intent. And certainly we've seen that here in Colorado, where the median price of a home has risen pretty dramatically. But I think
another aspect of that bill was to require Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to allot at least 5% of their profits into affordable housing funds, again, which generated more heat in the market and more inflation in the market. I mean, the Bush administration actually was skeptical of this bill, that it would do any good. Are you on the record in previous years, prior to this year, prior to 2007, really, because it became very, very apparent that the housing market was in big trouble and the subprime mortgage market was a mess. Are you on record as favoring some sort of reducing the ability of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac to tap into the Treasury, or any other really sort of not draconian, but reform, substantive reform that would have limited their exposure by this time? Other people listen to you?
Yeah, the 2005 vote and the 2005 legislation is where I expressed my point of view. I think, Vince, all of us were at one level or another of the point of view that increasing home ownership, of having an asset that appreciated, made sense. I think there, certainly in retrospect, across the board, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you're in the mortgage lending business, whether you're in the banking world, there are a lot of mistakes that were made. There were a lot of people who were wondering if this could last. I would tell you, the one place where, as an individual, as a citizen, I took the temperature was I had been renting a place in Washington, until 2004, and I finally got tired of all the cockroaches and a window unit air conditioner, and took the step of looking to buy something in Washington, D.C., and I asked around because the place I eventually ended up purchasing, 400 square feet, almost $400,000. It's a little it's a condo in a 4-story building. And I did the due diligence I thought I could do. What is this market going to last? What are the fundamentals here? And what kind of mortgage can I afford? You have two places. And in the back of my mind, there was still this, boy, this all sounds so great. And I did work with the bank and put a mortgage in place that was an interest-only mortgage on a second property, although in a sense a primary residence, I lived there half the year. And I made the decision right then and there that didn't make a lot of sense to not pay any principal, so I optionally pay principal. But I know that value in that building, I think, has dropped a little bit too. I don't know that I'd get my down payment back. I did have to put a down payment for it. The other thing, I just segue off of that, one of the interesting things about what we did too, or we didn't do, is right now in the bankruptcy laws, it's easier if you're in bankruptcy court, to work with a judge if you have a second, a third, and a fourth home than it is a first home. I think that's wrong.
So you do favor allowing bankruptcy judges to renegotiate contracts?
I haven't had, if my memory's right, I don't know if I've had an actual vote on it, but I think it's certainly worth considering. Look, I opposed that bankruptcy bill. I thought it was mean-spirited. I think we still maybe see the results of that bankruptcy bill, unfortunately, as this unfolds. Most people going to bankruptcy are there because of a significant and severe illness, or because of a job loss that was completely, that the employee had no idea was coming. And it was brought by big business interests and pushed and pushed and pushed, and finally the votes were cobbled together. And I've talked to a lot of bankruptcy attorneys who have plenty of work, who aren't necessarily falling on one side of this or the other, who just think that bill was misdirected.